Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I'm your host. And on this show, we're looking to help you be more strategic in the way that you approach your time, your energy, and your effort. And today, I'm excited to have Alexis Haselberger with us. She is a productivity and time management and efficiency expert, and she says, AKA nerd. So she spent more than 15 years, 15 plus years of her career managing operations and HR at several early stage startups where there was always way more to do than people to do it. I can relate, and I'm sure all of you can relate too. And she also believes, aside from working hard, that work-life balance is essential for everyone, even though the definition may be different for everyone. So welcome, Alexis. Without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Penny. It's so exciting to be here and talk to you about my favorite subject.
Yeah, well, tell me, why is it your favorite subject? I mean, really, that is pretty nerdy, right?
It is. Yeah, it is pretty nerdy. And a lot of people think, oh, time management, that's not fun. I think it's totally fun because my goal in life is to help other people figure out how to implement systems, strategies, etc., so that we can do more of what we want and less of what we don't, and decrease the stress levels that we all experience when we're working and we have families and there's just a million things to do. And I think, for me, it's really important that I have time for myself every day. And in order to do that, I need to be really mindful of how I use my time. And I want others to know that there's a way to get there also.
So let's jump right in. Let's talk about what is one thing that you do to give yourself time every day for yourself.
Exactly. So I think one thing I do is time blocking, which I know is not a new thing for, a lot of people time block, which is really saying, here is what my intentions are about what I'm going to do. And here is when I'm going to do it. And then sticking to that as much as I can. I mean, we can't stick to it 100% because we live in the real world, right? But blocking off time on my calendar of when I am not going to be doing anything related to work, right? So for me, after my kids go to bed at 8:30, that is time that I am not working and that I am doing whatever I want. And sometimes that's binge watching Netflix, and sometimes that's reading.
So wait a second, do you actually have a block that says binge watch?
No, I have a block that says do whatever I want.
Okay. So
Right?
You're very specific in blocking time that you're going to spend for yourself. So do you distinguish? So let's say, and I do the same thing, but I don't necessarily block after I'm off. But
Yeah.
What about like workouts and things like that? Are those clearly marked as a workout, or is that just blocked as free time for you?
So workouts are clearly marked as a workout, and because you have to build it into your schedule. If you just expect that time to come, if you expect to find the time, never going to happen. Right?
Not going to happen. And if you don't call it workout, you'll do something else, right?
Yeah. So I have a block every day. That's the first thing I do when I finish work. So when I finish my meetings for the day, or when I finish my end of day planning, I have a block that's workout. It exists 5 days a week, and I move it around based on when my meetings are, but it's in there as a recurring appointment so that I know that I have to find a place in the day to make it happen.
And so what happens if something gets in the way? What do you do?
So lots of times things get in the way, right? And so I'll readjust. I have, I believe in being really kind with yourself about this stuff. So my goal is to go for a 35 to 45 minute run every day. That's my goal. If things get a little screwed up and I really just don't have time because, client meeting ran over, or there was an emergency, or my kid's school called and I needed to go pick them up or something, then I will still do exercise, but I'll do exercise that takes less time. So I'll switch to, say, the New York Times 7-minute workout that I know I can do in my house.
Right.
I'll just switch it and say, you know what? I didn't get a full run in today, and that's okay, but I did do some exercise.
And I think that's the key thing is I do the same thing. And I think, and I tell people that it's, if it's important to you and it's a block there, then you can't delete it. Right. You have to either move it or you have to adapt it. Like you said, even you can still work out in 5 to 7 minutes, right? Right. There are plenty of, New York Times, you said, and there's plenty of apps that'll allow you also to choose a 5-minute workout, and they'll give you serious abs or whatever for 5 minutes. And that's way better than not doing it, right? It's so important to create that momentum, and that keeps that momentum going.
Right. And that's what keeps the habits going, right? Like we all know how hard it is to get back into exercising or anything really after we've been on vacation, right?
Right.
If we don't have those habits built in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's an important tip. And, you say, oh, we all know about time blocking. There's a lot of people who don't actually, I'm surprised, who don't know what time blocking is. So just give us your perspective on what time blocking is.
Yeah. So for me, time blocking is putting actual time blocks on our calendars as if they were meetings for things that are not meetings, for things that are things that we want to get done. So for instance, what this looks like in my world is I have, of course, my calendar that has my client appointments and things like that on it. And then I have an overlaid calendar called time blocking where I fill in the gaps with what I'm actually going to do from my task list. So if I have large things, I will, on a weekly basis, I'll kind of fill in the blocks of large projects or tasks that I'm doing. So maybe writing a blog post or creating content for a workshop that I'm doing or something like that. And then I also have blocks for the things that take time, but we often don't think about.
Like what?
Email, right? Email and Slack. Like these things, they take time out of our days, sometimes a lot of time, but we often just kind of do it in between things and don't prioritize it. And we think, this happens all the time. It's like, somebody's like, well, I work an 8-hour day and I have 3 hours of meetings. So that means I have 5 hours to work on my projects. And it's like, no, you don't have 5 hours to work on your projects because you have to subtract the hour and a half that you would be answering your email and communications and things like that. So we have to for me, time blocking is about being realistic.
I just wrote that down, right? Is that we're not, to come back to it, is that we are, we're unrealistic a lot of times in the way that we plan for things.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I have a block on my calendar that says cook dinner because I know that if I just leave it to the last minute, that my kids are going to be eating later than we intended, right?
Right.
And so I have to build that time there because otherwise, we think we're going to remember, we think that in the heat of the moment, when somebody's saying, can you meet at 4:00? If we're like, yeah, I can meet at 4:00, nothing's there. But then we forget about the exercise that we wanted to do or the fact that we have to cook dinner or whatever it is.
Right. And there's an opportunity cost, right? Is you could meet someone, but that might mean you're not going to the gym. So you have to, when you're blocked out, you get to be more, like you said, more deliberate and more purposeful about what you're choosing to do.
Right. More intentional, right? I think a lot of times we do what's called what I call it letting the day happen to us, right? And where we're just kind of like, this person wants to talk and it's email and then this person's meeting. And then we get to the end of the day and nothing's crossed off our to-do list, even though we've been, quote, working all day.
Right.
And we feel bad about how we spent our time. We don't feel good about it.
Right.
And my goal, in working, and for myself and with other people is how do we feel better about what we did get done versus what we didn't get done? Because I'm not helping anybody make their to-do list shorter, right?
Right.
We're getting better about how we're spending our time on the important things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I said that too. I actually said somewhere and somebody gave me a really hard time. I said, I think productivity is a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I 100% agree. I mean, I am literally always saying to people, look, we're going to die one day with a big long list of stuff we didn't do.
Right.
And that is okay. That's actually preferable because what would it be like if we just finished everything every day? We'd have nothing to strive for, right? And I think you're totally right in calling it a feeling that what we want to get to is that we know and we feel good that the stuff we did was more important than the stuff we didn't do. And that's it.
Right.
That's it.
Absolutely. Because, it's not like when you lay in bed sick, right? Do you think, oh, I was so unproductive today?
Oh,
you feel pretty productive because you did what you needed to do.
Right. My body did the work that it needed to do. Right?
I needed to lay down and sleep all day. And that was exactly what I needed to do.
Right. Right. And the same for leisure time too, right? I mean, I come across a lot of people who they feel really bad anytime they watch TV or something like that. And I'm like, you deserve time to do something that you enjoy. That's totally fine. No, nobody's judging you. I'm not judging you for what you want to do in your free time.
Right.
I'm happy you have free time to watch TV. Yeah.
So let's talk about vacation. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that, haven't had a vacation in 10 years.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that and productivity and time management?
So all of the studies, which I'm sure you know, show that it is incredibly important to have breaks. and not just breaks, in 5 minutes here and there, but actual breaks from work that allow our minds to decompress. And that when we do take real breaks where we sort of decompress from work, that we come back more productive, more creative, and more accurate in what we're doing. And so I actually think that I am a person who, even when I worked for other people, I never checked email on a vacation, like not once, because I always assumed that if somebody really needs me, they will find a way to get me. They will call me. And you know what? Nobody ever needed me. Like, we're not as important as we think we are.
Well, that's true, right?
Right? And so nobody needed me. And so that helped me feel good about that. I think, you're right. There's so many entrepreneurs out there who never take vacations. And I think that's exactly how we burn out, and also how we get stuck in ruts in our business. Because
absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I get my best ideas for my business and for blog posts when I'm on a run. Totally. Like, I am literally always stopping to make a voice note about a great blog post idea that I had when I was just running,
Me too. Totally. When I'm working out, when I'm in the shower, when I'm taking a walk, it's generally when I'm not at the desk. And I think also that if you are that important in your business, that your business is not going to scale, and you're not going to be able to grow your business if you were intertwined in every aspect. So, you can celebrate and should take yourself out of the business. And that's a way to show that it's working, right?
And that's also how you model healthy behavior to your employees. Because I think, the other thing I've seen, I grew up in the startup world, right? And so another thing that I saw all the time was CEOs who said stuff like, hey, you're not expected to work on vacation. You're not expected to answer your email after work. But when you then see that person is sending you an email at 3 a.m. or when you get back to work, you've been at work an hour after a vacation and they're like, are you up to speed on X, Y, and Z? The message they're sending is that whatever they say, they actually do expect you to be on.
Right. That's a challenge. How do you suggest that people deal with that? Because that is a challenge for a lot of people. They said, yeah, but, right? That's a great strategy, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? I think our tool, I'm not just all about tools and technology, but there are ones that can really help us. And I think
we're going to talk about that too.
Okay. And I think that the ability to schedule emails to send at a specific time is something that all leaders should take on.
Right.
Because you can still be, I don't suggest that you be doing your email at 3 a.m. I don't think that's not very healthy for you. I don't think, for most people. But if you're going to do that, then you need to schedule it so that it sends at 8 a.m. so that the message you're sending to your employees is not one that causes burnout.
Yeah. Or you can hold it. You can draft it, right? And then just send them all after you draft it. I think it's important, and I want to talk about the other side of that, about the receiver. But I think I call it the hot potato syndrome.
Yeah.
Is because, it's like I got something on my plate and it's hot and I got to get it off just because I want to get it out of my head.
Yes.
And so just because that's urgent for me to get out of my head doesn't mean that it's urgent for the other person to do exactly at that moment. I just want it off my plate. And I think people, unfortunately, they pass the hot potato along and everybody thinks it's a hot potato. If you just hold on to it and let it cool down, it'll be what it's supposed to be, right? And so I think what you said is perfect, is that using scheduling and respecting other people and how they might be receiving it is going to help productivity all around. And also for the receiver is not to see every request as urgent.
Oh, you are speaking I'm like having trouble.
We do speak the same language.
Yes, we are speaking the same language. I totally agree. I'm always telling people, look, the person sending you that email that gave you that notification, they're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about you and that you're going to get this. They are thinking about themselves and that they want to get it out of their brain.
Yeah.
And so this, we're kind of in an environment now where I think we're in kind of the baby nascent stages of learning how to use technology for good and instead of having it kind of run our lives. And I think on the receiver's end too, turning off those notifications, right?
Yes. Why can't people do that? Tell me why.
Yeah. It's like, I have no notifications on. I mean, I have meeting notifications because that's important, but no Slack, no email, no text, not on my phone, not on my desktop, because I want to be in control of when I respond to other people.
Yeah, because you can go get it when you need it, but it is a distraction. Even if you hear it and you don't act on it, your brain has shifted for a moment and is still thinking, I wonder what that was. I wonder if that was important.
Right. And that, I mean, there was that study that came out of UC Irvine a few years ago, right, that showed that every time we are distracted or interrupted, even if it's one notification popping up on our phone, even if it's a silent one, it's just a little light, or when we distract ourselves by, right, we're doing something and then we're like, oh, I should probably check now, right? That when that happens, it takes us on average 23 minutes to regain focus on what we were doing.
Absolutely. Did you hear we just got a notification in there at that very moment?
Yes, I think actually that was my meeting notifications.
That we're meeting.
And there it goes again.
There it goes again.
Right now, because I told you the only notifications I have are meeting notifications.
Right. And so I think it's important that people manage that, and that they really, you can select which ones you hear and which ones you don't hear. I'm pretty much, I don't even have meeting notifications, because I'll look at my calendar in the morning and I can go after each meeting and look at my calendar and see what I have when I'm finished with what I have.
Yeah. I used to not have meeting notifications either, but now I have clients who are talkers. I have a lot of clients who talk a lot, which is a great thing, but sometimes I need to, I need to check, but yes.
You want to regulate the time. Absolutely. And there's different strokes for different folks, right? I think it's important that whatever we're talking about, like when you said somebody is sending at 3 a.m. Well, if you can't sleep and that's the most productive use of your time because you just couldn't sleep, that it is what it is. And you get to make the decisions of whatever is going to be productive and make sense for you. Right. But we're just giving some best practices.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about, wait, we didn't answer that question fully. And then I want to talk about tools a little bit. So for that person who gets the email from the CEO at 3 a.m. or their boss texts them at 6 a.m., what do you suggest they do with that?
So I think that if we can get people into a rhythm where they're processing, I don't call it checking email, I call it processing, right? Like processing their email a few times a day, that is the best for most people's, the way that their brains work, and for not getting distracted and for having deep thinking time. But it also requires communication, because if you are a person who has been responding immediately to everything, you actually do need to have a conversation and say, hey, I am trying out some different techniques because I have noticed that my focus and my productivity needs some work. And I bet a lot of other people's do too. And so what I'm going to be trying is I'm going to be checking email, at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. If you need me urgently, please call me or please text me or whatever that
have a message,
the notification, right? Because we've all got something. Most of us, I do keep my phone on silent during the day, but most people do not, right? And so like, what is that one way that someone can get to you if they really need you?
Right.
And I find that when people have this conversation, they often realize that, oh, their boss they weren't expecting them to answer at 6 a.m., right? They're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that you were thinking that I needed a response then.
Right. Right. And it's because we make everything urgent. So I think it's critical that we have those conversations with our teams, with our boss. And, it's a good time. We're not far from the new year, right? So with the new year coming, sit down with your boss and your team and your colleagues and say, hey, let's implement some things that are going to support all of us in being more productive, and talk about what some of the challenges are. Like you said, it's as simple as saying, listen, here's what I'm going to be doing, and here's a way that you can get a hold of me if it's really critical, and you come up with a way that's going to work for both of you. Right. I mean, it's really that simple, but we're afraid to have that communication. We're afraid of what the other person might think. And I think that it would actually create just the opposite response. Instead of resistance, I think it would create respect.
I 100% agree. I mean, I'm always talking to teams too about how do we have conversations about communication norms amongst our team?
Yeah.
Because so people have just wild variations on how quickly should a Slack response be answered, right?
Right.
You ask a team of 5 people, every single one of those people is going to give you a completely different answer, right? And having those conversations is totally key so that we can get on the same page, and also just talk about, are these false expectations that we had put on ourselves? Like we all think, we're all this, and yet none of us wants to be.
I think it comes down to that we all care. We care about other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when these responses come in, these requests, that we take them seriously, right? I got to get back to them immediately. I got to get back to this. But it creates that overload because of technology and its access to us now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just have to be smarter about the way we process. And I'm gonna borrow that from you, because I think that's the languaging is critical there, right? Is that we have to process it differently because of the way that it comes into us. So that's our challenge, is to be, and you said it in the very beginning, is that's how we can be more intentional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
So tell me about some of the tools that you love that you think are, really productivity and time management must-haves or great to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. The way that I think about tools is actually, like, I don't use a ton of them, right? Like, I don't want lots of different apps tracking lots of things. Like, the one tool I think is more and more necessary for everyone is having a task manager app, having some place that is electronic where you keep all of the things that you have to do and the stuff that you have to follow up on. And I teach a method of task management that's kind of system agnostic, but I do have my favorite. So the tool that I recommend most often to my clients is called TickTick, T-I-C-K.
I don't know that one.
It is a task manager app that no one has ever heard of. It's like this secret little thing. It has an amazing, amazing interface. Like, it has all the features you want, none of the bloat that you don't. It has an amazing free version, and nobody's ever heard of it. Like, I feel like I'm their unofficial ambassador, because like, this is the tool that I recommend most frequently to my clients who are not already using Asana or something like that.
Right.
Good.
Check it out.
Yeah.
And what are the features that you like most in it, that so people can understand also when they're managing their to-do list, what are some of the things that help them to be efficient and effective in doing that?
So for me, the way that I approach task management is that you need a few fields. Any system you use, you're going to need a few specific fields. So you need a subject field, like, what is the task? What is the thing that you're doing? You need a description so that you can add what are your next steps, or what is a checklist of things that you're doing on this thing, or just notes about it, right?
Right.
You need a date field so that you know, not necessarily due dates, but when are you going to take action on something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we need to know due dates where there are due dates, but we also need to know, when are we actually going to do this thing? What is the date that I'm time blocking so that I'm actually going to work on this next step of this thing at that time?
Right.
And then you need a way to document. So you need a comment field. Most task apps, including this one, has a commenting field where you just type a little quick note to yourself. It time and date stamps it. And that way, when somebody asks you, where are we on X, Y, or Z, you can look and be like, oh, I sent the email to Bob on Tuesday, and Julie talked to me about it on Thursday, and now we're at this stage, without using your memory for all of that.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, great. So give us two more. We're winding down to our time limit here. Give us two more. You don't have to describe them, but just what are they, and what do they cover? Like, what's the, like you said, tools? Sorry, go ahead.
So the other tools I really love I love Calendly. Even people who don't have a business, I think Calendly is a great way to ensure that you're not having all these back and forth emails about when can we meet.
For sure.
Right?
For
so
sure.
Any kind of app like that, I think is great. And then honestly, I think our calendars, it's such a basic tool, but so many people aren't using their calendar to full effect, right? They're looking at it sometimes, they're not using it for time blocking, but being able to effectively use our calendars, not just for our work management, but also, I have a family calendar that overlays on everyone in my family's, our own calendars.
Absolutely.
So that we know where everyone is. On that, I have our meal plan so that everyone knows what's for dinner, and people can just stop asking me, what are we having for dinner tonight, right?
Right. Some really simple things to share, right, can be done and shared through the calendar. Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I'm sure you've got loads of other tips and tricks that you'd love to share. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so my website is alexishaselberger.com, and I hope you'll put that in the show notes, because nobody can spell my last name. And that is really the best place for people to find out more. I do offer, I have a newsletter that's free if anyone's interested in that. I know we all need more email, right? But I try to send out tips only when I have something valuable to say.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Alexis, so much for being here and sharing some really valuable, important time management and productivity tips.
Well, thank you so much. It was a fun conversation.
And thank you all for being here. And even though you know some of this, the truth is you're not doing some of this. So if you want to be more intentional and really get the results that you're looking for, and as I said, feel more productive, then look at your consistency level, putting these things into practice and being consistent about the application. That's what it's all about. So thank you all for being here. My name is Penny Zanker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode.